Hey friends, today I'll show you how I draw stylized eyes, so let's go! So for me personally, I really like drawing eyes, but that's probably because I practiced it a lot and it always turns out kinda okay, even if I kinda mess things up. But yeah, practice is key, guys. Practice is key. But I can show you how you can start with that. I'm always starting with a basic shape because the eye isn't just a flat oval, it's a sphere, and therefore I'm always laying down a circle where I can lay the eyelids over it. For the first two eyes, I actually used a pink color because I thought, why not? Pink is cool and I really like how pink sketches turn out. But you can't really see what I'm doing here, so yeah, the other, I switched. I switched the colors for the other eyes, don't worry. So the guiding circle I'm actually using isn't the iris or the pupil, it's actually a bigger circle which represents kind of the eyeball itself. And then I'm laying everything on it. This first eye is looking straight at us, so the iris and the pupil are centered on the guiding circle I started with. So I did this perspective-wise easy one to warm up at first, but I actually think if you try different perspective, different angles you can look at eyes, those most of the time turn out way nicer. And what you really need to know, don't be afraid to look at real eyes, photos or other artists' work. I actually used real photos and images just to see how the proportions actually were, because you don't need to be able to make an eye just out of your head or draw something just out of your head, because you don't need to do that. And for me, using references, it's always like I'm seeing things or I'm noticing things I wouldn't have known when I would have drawn the thing out of my head. And you can practice with references, and if you do a lot of this and use a lot of references, it's much easier to actually draw something out of your head. I mean, I don't really know if this makes sense to you, but you then really know how, from which angles the eye or the thing you want to draw looks like, and you can just make things up more easily. You can see for the second eye, I just drew a side eye, I guess, where you look at the eye from an angle, and I think it's really cool because you can see the depth of the eye much more. So yeah, and that was the point where I noticed I really didn't like the way it turned out because I added eyelashes. And yeah, I think that's a totally style choice, but I just didn't like eyelashes on this one. And yeah, after that upcoming eyeball, I'm leaving eyelashes behind totally. I finally changed my pencil color and you can now see what I'm doing clearly. I hope so, actually. Um, and as you can see, I didn't start with a circle this time because I tried to intensify the side eye. And this time I just started with the eyeball itself and made that circle because I was kinda like too lazy to draw a whole circle and I didn't need it here. So I did my signature move again. I laid the eyelid on top and thickened the line a little bit, and then did the tear thingy on the left of the eye. And yeah, this one was totally guided by reference, I have to say. And it really helped me just figuring out the perspective and everything. And then I did eyelashes, and yeah, you know how I think about those eyelashes. So now that I'm looking at it, voiceovering this, I don't think that it's that bad, but Still not a big fan. You can see I added some more wrinkles and I added a shadow behind or below the eyelid so that it just adds more depth, and that's actually a trick you can do. So if you're coloring or shading your eyes, the upper eyelid usually casts a shadow over the top of the eye and the eye itself is darker around the edges. So that's something you can do while shading, and also those light spots you have when, because of reflection and everything, you can add those to make more depth or make it more shiny and everything. Or if you're drawing cute creatures and they have big eyes, if you add big reflecting spots, that looks really, really cute too. So for the fourth eye, what I'm actually doing is, you can see I laid down my guiding circle and I laid the upper and the lower eyelid on top of it. So yeah, the guiding circle actually just helps me wrapping my mind around a 3D object. And then I'm also using the circle to add the wrinkle of the upper eyelid, because how I use the guiding circle is that the wrinkle of the upper eyelid always lays where the circle, on the edge of the circle, because the circle is representing the eyeball itself. Then for shading, you can see that I added the shade below the upper eyelid, and below that I added a reflecting line, I think. And those are kind of random, most times inspired by the reference, but there are also times where I just add some reflecting blobs and be fine with it, and I sketch them out beforehand or before I just color in the iris, because yeah, so I don't have to go in with a white pencil again or with a white postcard marker. So something to keep in mind or to try is to start with a lighter pencil. You can use actually lighter colors or just use a lighter hand when sketching out the first part of an eye, because you can always darken your parts, but erasing stuff is mostly turns out not that great. Let's phrase it like that. Because
Yeah,
I mean, I used
but that's
colored
also the
pencils
case
with
for
this,
normal
and
pencils.
I actually use that because
If you're
I
using a
think it's
normal
much more
pencil
fun.
and you erase again and
But
erase again, it's the paper gets stained, the paper gets all crumbled up, and sometimes you just get more frustrated. So I highly encourage you, just take a paper, draw some eyes on that, and if the beginning eyes are bad, that's great, because you can see your progress. You can see how your eyes are getting better with each time you try it, or each eye you're drawing on that paper. So yeah, this last one I kinda messed up. I tried to fix that with shading so it looks kind of edgy, and I added a wrinkle below because, yeah, maybe that looks more edgy, I guess. But yeah, we should just leave it like that. Now that I'm looking at it, I think the proportions aren't really right, because the wing at the end of the eye is too high and should have had a dip where the eye is ending, so that it doesn't interfere with the roundness of the eye. Yeah, putting that aside. And maybe let's not talk about the first blue one where I was trying to draw a man's eye and I'm struggling with that. Let's be honest, who is not struggling with that? Something I actually found out is that the eyebrows, when you're looking at men's faces, are much lower. So they're just closer to the eyes, and that's what makes eyes look more masculine. And they are not that round, and most of the time not that open. But as you can see, I am not an expert, and let's move on.
With the second blue eye, I also started again with my circle. I laid the eyelids on top, made the iris at the right hand side of the circle, and with that eye you can actually see that the wrinkle on top of the upper eyelid is exactly where the circle ends. So yeah, kind of makes sense, I guess. Moving on with this next eye, I'm also laying down my guiding circle, then laying the eyelids on top of it. And for this eye, I actually wanted to get the impression, or to convey the impression, that it's looking in the direction of the sun, and so there's much more shading from the eyelids and probably also from the eyebrows. So after adding the iris and the pupil, I just added the shadow, which got down to the half of the eye actually. And then I'm using my guiding circle again to draw the wrinkles of the upper eyelid, which lay exactly on the edge of my guiding circle. And yeah, with that, I'm nearly finished. Only the eyebrows are lacking, and let's be honest, eyebrows are something very, very important for conveying emotions in eyes. And as you can see, I'm just roughly sketching the hair of the eyebrows, which is going up at the beginning of the eyebrow and then going into the direction where the eyebrow is going. And I switched my color again. And now I'm laying down my guiding circle again and laying my eyelids on top. Not my eyelids, I didn't rip out my eye, but I'm laying eyelids on top of the guiding circle. And yeah, this time I wanted to have an eye which is looking kind of upwards, and if you look at eyes very closely, the iris actually goes up a little bit from the eyeball, so it's not exactly round, and that's why I push the eyelid a little bit up so that it conveys the illusion that the iris pops a little bit on of the eyeball. You know what I mean, I guess. And if you want your iris to be more realistic, you also have to add more texture and of course other colors to the iris. And yes, start shading the iris. The area closer to the pupil is usually darker, and the outer edge of the iris is also a little bit darker. So yeah, and then you can use darker color around and at the center of the iris, and then just use a lighter color to make lines and dots and color everywhere. Yes. For this eye, I didn't want it to have like a total round expression, so, or appearance, I made the wrinkle of the upper eyelid a little bit more stretched out, and then added more shading to have more depth, to be a little bit more edgy. And that was the point where I thought, okay, I have practiced enough normal eyes, I'm going absurd now. So for this, you can see I laid down two guiding circles, an upper one and a lower one. And the upper one is actually for guiding the eyebrow later, because this should be an astonished looking eye, I guess. And for that, I really wanted to have the raised eyebrow, or the reference said it should have a raised eyebrow. So I just laid down those guiding circles, and I think it's much easier to just figure out how much they have to be spaced apart if you're just laying down circles to get a feeling for the spaces. And this one was actually kind of fun to draw because I kind of like weird looking eyes, I guess. And yeah, to add a little bit more depth, I just colored in the background or the skin a little bit. And yeah, just to make it pop a little more and to jump at you a little bit more, I guess, if eyes can jump.
So for this eye, I thought, why not go totally crazy if I'm going crazy with my eyes anyways. So I picked a reference where someone was pulling at the lower eyelid, so and looking upwards, so the eye is just getting pulled out a little bit and you can see into the lower eyelid. And I thought that's kind of a cool practice to see how far this practice has got me. Starting again with the circle and with the eyelids, and then I'm also lining out the reflections so I don't color it. And yeah, just starting with the wrinkles, which were kind of extreme at this one. Who could have thought? And yeah, I was kind of intimidated by the wrinkles at the lower, or the lower lid. Yeah, that's how it's called. And but they actually turned out quite nice. They weren't actually that hard to draw anyways. So yeah. I was really hesitant to put those veins inside the eye because you can really mess things up with those, because they are really difficult to make them look realistic, I think. But if you don't overdo it, it's fine, and I think I cheated my way to success. Yeah, now I'm just shading everything, and that's how it came out. I'm kind of pleased with it. For the last eye, I thought I'm going with something more easy or something I know now, because maybe I had no more other ideas, and finishing up a spread where you're like, this spread is okay, I'm fine with it. You don't want the last thing to mess everything up and you never look at this spread again because there's something cruelly wrong with it. So I just picked up something that was easy to do. I laid down my guiding circle again, and yeah, just laid out everything. You can probably slow down and see in detail what I'm doing here. But I'm thickening the upper part of the eyelid again, just because I don't want to draw eyelashes. Yeah. And adding some wrinkles, adding some shadings, and I think that's it. I hope you like this. I hope you could take something out of it. I hope I could somehow help you. And if you tried something from this, or if you found it kind of helpful, please let me know. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!